Hi, everybody, and welcome to an edition of the Wake Up Call here at the Kansas City Call newspaper. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll say that now because I know I'll forget. We have a special guest today. We have Miss Tracy Allen, our publisher and editor, and you guys may recognize we have Mayor Lucas here of Kansas City, Missouri. He's going to talk to us today. Tracy's going to ask him some questions, and I'm going to sit here and try not to make jokes and ask some smart questions myself.
Trust me, there's going to be jokes, and he's also going to ask some questions.
That's right. That's
so
right.
Trust me on that, Jason. You always do that. So
I do.
He never passes a moment
No.
I believe
where
it.
there's something crazy that he's about to say, and so forth.
Well, listen, my mother worked for the state of Missouri for 40-ish years, and I have been drugged to Jeff City several times with her when I was younger. And yeah, I learned real quick, if you can make them laugh,
That's right. That's right.
you it goes a long way. So, yeah, anyway.
Okay, well, Quinton, first of all, thank you. And you don't mind me calling you Quinton, right?
Hey, look.
Mayor Quinton Lucas.
No, you can call me Quinton. You are, I say with respect, an elder of mine, so I'm going to call you Miss Allen.
Okay, well,
but whatever you need to call me, it's all
I'll call
good.
you. Okay. Mayor, one of the things, it's been a busy time for you.
Yes.
Especially in the last few months, as we deal with a variety of things, and of course, the upcoming, World Cup and so forth. But I kind of want to talk a little bit about just how 2025 has been for you. A couple of weeks ago, I had on Prosecutor Johnson.
Yes.
And talking with her about some of the challenges that she has faced just in her first year. And of course, we know this is not your first year. But what are some things you've been having to deal with, challenges this particular season, when I say season 2025?
Every now and then I'll read an opinion piece in a call, and I got to deal with that. But no, it's I'll read all of them. But make sure you know what's coming your way. No, I think there are a few things that we've had to deal with. The story of 2025 for a lot of us in government is going to be the, in my opinion, detrimental impact of President Trump on a whole bunch of different parts of life. I just had lunch with a good brother, actually from the Northland, who was talking about the cost of things now.
Correct.
These tariffs, everything else, increasing the cost of construction, increasing the cost of food. You have people that are having, I think, greater affordability challenges than they have had at almost any point in recent years. And so we are dealing with that right now. That's going to have an impact on jobs as well. We have a lot of federal workers in Kansas City, a lot of federal workers who have had to leave their jobs. That destabilizes neighborhoods and beyond. So a lot of what we're trying to do is kind of this abrupt change you had from the end of the Biden era, where you had people who cared about investing in cities, who cared about, I think, supporting all communities of all types, to the fights that we're in now, trying to make sure we can hang on to representation of Black and brown people in construction, in government projects, making sure that we can actually hang on to healthcare investment. They're even trying to refund, I will say, if not defund, how we do homelessness support in the United States of America.
Correct.
All of them very real challenges, and that has probably been the most time-consuming part of my life, because I'm going to be straight. The city can't fill the gap of everything.
Right, and that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because we understand the cuts and the things that President Trump is doing and his administration. How has the council and the government in Jackson County specifically, and obviously Kansas City, Missouri, handle with the funding, knowing that the funding is going to be tight? You can't take care of everybody. But how do you make those decisions from the standpoint of, as we head into 2026, less funding for a lot of people And then obviously, I don't want to say people are going to beg,
Right.
but that is a possibility. How are you all seeing that as you head into, the upcoming year?
I think what I would note is kind of when you have those types of challenges, frankly, just like your household budget, if you've ever known struggle, you have some things that you're not going to cut, and you have some things that you're going to have to. For the city, my mother also worked for the state, and I hated, detested the many years they would go without a salary increase when people would get laid off. That demoralizes somebody and demoralizes them for generations. So we are not cutting jobs. We are not laying off people. We're going to try to do right by them and making sure at least if we can get a little cost of living adjustment, we will try to do that. But I am strong and strident on that. Now, on the other hand, what that means is, maybe you're cutting every program known to man. But I think we owe it to our employees, the brothers on back of trucks, the folks that are doing all the work anytime there's a storm coming through, that city government will be stable from them. I expect in all of our discretionary spending some substantial cuts. I think there will be challenges in a lot of our different departments, including the health department that usually delivers a lot of different services. I think you will see scaling back there. And the problem is that means that you will have people with less access to care in Kansas City. But I think that's the balance that we find ourselves in right now. One thing that I appreciate that we've done as they came in trying to say, oh, y'all need to change everything about your affirmative action policies, all of that.
Right.
Kansas City took a wait and see approach. I've seen other cities that I think, frankly, abandoned their minority communities. We have not. We do not plan to. We'll answer a lawsuit if it comes. We'll answer an enforcement action. But for now, we're doing what we can as we view it under the law.
I was going to ask, how is that? How is what Kansas City is doing? How is the state affecting what you do? Because I know,
Correct.
the state environment right now, and I'm not going to make any funny comments, but the state as it stands now, literally, even though St. Louis and Kansas City both look like they're trying to leave anyway, it looks like they're trying to push the cities out as far as support, both financially and both legislatively. Like there's no support coming from the state. How is the city working with that or in that environment, I guess is one of the
I think the first thing you got to realize about the state is that often they are copycatting what is being done at the federal level.
Right.
So and because of their closer relationship to us, it can be more threatening. The state really runs a lot of our social services all around us, from the foster care system, things y'all may not be thinking of, foster care, probation and parole, right, our health care, Medicare policy, all of that. I mean, there is real stuff that them coming up with these crazy ideas, in my opinion, in Jefferson City can have on us. Right now there's a conversation about eliminating the income tax. And, seems interesting until you realize how you going to pay for everything. We already have trouble, and I heard a lot of complaints on the last snowstorm. Most of the people who were writing to me and blowing up my social media and all of that were mad about the interstates and highways, MoDOT, right? And they were just saying, well, we do what we can do. We don't have the employees. We don't have this. So how, if you cut hundreds of millions of dollars out of the state budget at a time salaries increase, insurance premiums increase, are you going to be able to deliver better? So I think the state is probably my greatest concern in terms of what we deal with. Ultimately, we need to start winning elections again, Missouri-wide, and what I would say is is people who care about and think about cities.
I think people are upset about taxes. And I understand as a resident of one state and work in another state, and I pay taxes both places. And I pay taxes in KC Mo because I work here. I understand all those things. And I understand people not like to pay taxes. But tax dollars is what allows us to have streets.
Correct.
It allows us to have public service, allows us to have police, fire department, ambulance, public hospitals, all the things we need to keep social cohesion. And I think somewhere or another, I'm making a statement, I think somewhere or another, the messaging has gotten lost. And I also think there's a progressive arm that's not doing its due diligence saying those things.
Right.
And that's all I'm going to say about that right now.
Right. No, I mean, I think it is fair to note right now that there are some weaknesses in all areas. One, we don't explain enough what government does, what the money goes to.
Right.
I was telling somebody, and don't get me wrong, I have issues with the property taxes and the increases many of us experience right here in Jackson County. My taxes were raised by 68%. I know a bunch of other people saw much more substantial.
200%.
Right. I mean, just wild. People who are on pensions, people who are retired, who don't have the ability to make that payment. I think what we need to have a better balance of in government, though, is an understanding where that's going to, right? Largely going to your public schools, largely going to some of the services that we need. And I think that's the balance we'll get. One of the ways that Republicans have been able to win nationally is to exploit that first thing you said. Y'all hate taxes, right? And everybody says, yeah, I don't want to pay for anything again. And then you look at a lot of the states that have been conservative the longest, right? Lowest in education, lowest in infrastructure, lowest in healthcare, got people dying too young, have too much high infant mortality. I'm not trying to be Mississippi. I'm not trying to be Alabama. My people came from Alabama years ago. We ain't going back.
Right.
And I think the problem is with Missouri right now, you've got this moment where people are kind of saying, well, and Trump is on the ascent and all of that. They're trying to be just like it, which is undermining our cities, undermining St. Louis and Kansas City, and making quality of life harder for people in our communities around Kansas City.
One of the things when you talk about making it harder, I have talked with Kim Davis, obviously, director of the Heartland Black Chamber of Commerce, and she had a tremendous guest on a few weeks ago about just as far as construction and job opportunities, particularly for individuals, obviously the women, but also people of color. Again, that is an aspect that I feel from the standpoint of the administration and the kind of way things are going as far as getting, construction jobs. Talk about that here as is in Kansas City, because obviously we're in an area right now where we're under a heavy, a lot of construction.
Right.
But is there anything that the city is doing, particularly from the council and so forth, to provide an opportunity for the individuals in the WBE and MBE be able to get the jobs that they need and should have, due to their, experience? Because it seems like those are floating away from them as well.
Right. I think the first thing that the city, from its perspective, recognizes is that to have work for people, you got to have the work straight up. We continue to support, I think, important infrastructure projects throughout the city. Here on 18th Street, you see some, although it is a lot. You've got the garage down the street. You have a lot of things going on, and we plan to continue that because we realize, just almost like a Roosevelt-era New Deal, you need to make sure you're putting people to work. You need to make sure there are activities for us all. In terms of how we make sure there is still space for all communities, particularly the often left out, and I'll just say Black community here.
Correct.
Because I think you see us uniquely, even compared to our Hispanic brothers and sisters. And, what we are doing there is we continue to enforce our MBE, WBE policies. That program is still active. My view has always been, until I have a judge who tells me to stop, I'm going to keep doing what we need to do to remediate the harms that were done by discrimination and segregation in Kansas City for all these years. Now, the next step of what we have to do, we work with folks like Clyde McQueen, the Full Employment Council. We work with folks like Dr. Beatty at MCC to make sure that we're getting folks trained up for it, too. Because the biggest excuse I've seen in my years in office is not that people are saying, I'm unwilling to do your program. It's their claim, whether it's real or not, that they can't find anybody. Right. And probably one of the biggest problems I've always had in how we talk about Kansas City and job development and all of that, a distinction that I think I had from my predecessor and perhaps others. They always said, you need to build a city that attracts all these new people. We've got tens of thousands of Black people between the ages of 18 and 30 who I think, if not unemployed, are underemployed in so many spaces. Correct. How do we make sure that we are building opportunities for them?
Right, because I know, and I didn't want to cut you off.
No, you good.
I know that with the Trump administration and so forth, I think recently the Job Corps was ended as far as earlier this year. So those are going to be concerns that people are going to have. It's like, okay, now that this program has ended, what is the city or anybody doing to be able to replace so that our younger people can, AKA, have another maybe Job Corps,
Yeah.
type situation?
I think there are a few groups that we work with from the jump to do it. One, we need to make sure that more people know about the opportunities for them. And so that's getting to our kids even younger, working in our high schools. And by the way, recognizing our community is not just in KCPS. You got to get to Hickman Mills Center, even some of our Northland districts, Lord knows Raytown and Grandview as well. And so we are making sure that we get with them and say, how do we train our children from a younger age to know of career opportunities, to get some of that early training? They're doing that at Manual Tech again, and that's essential for us. I think the next step of what we try to do in every big project that we're doing is that workforce component. How are you making sure that you have not just representation from throughout the city, but that you are training up workers to have an ability to do more? We can't just have projects where people say there's no one qualified to do it except for this narrow group, because that self-perpetuates, father teaches son. It's how you just have this generational sort of thing that excludes us. We are building more of that in each project that says you are using from the community, including the community you're building around.
Correct.
Right? We can't have huge East Side projects and nobody from the East Side is a part of it. And so looking at the ways I think you can be creative with those programs. They have never said in the Trump administration, for example, that you can't have programs that target specific areas. They're trying to go after race. They're trying to go after gender. Okay. Unfortunately, due to our segregated history and past, we still, if you're in an area of the city, largely are living still under certain population patterns. I think there are ways to address it. The city just needs to be creative with it.
Mayor, one of the things I kind of wanted to ask you, and I know it's a big thing as far as with our readers and those that listen to us. Obviously, we're going to have one really big event next year. And even though the World Cup is really classified as literally what we're going to be experiencing, 6 Super Bowls, all within like a month and a half time, really, when you think about it. I think our people are, and when I say our people, Black people in Kansas City are going to be wondering, okay, what are we going to benefit as a community, whether it's foot traffic, financial, something that we can get back, where it's not just an event that starts in really, even though it starts in June, it's really, a lot of that is going to start in late May. And then obviously the 1st of July,
Right.
where it doesn't just come and then go, and then we do not receive anything monetarily wise. When I say monetarily, to help our businesses, whether it's entrepreneurs that are going to be starting out, or maybe businesses like our business, even though we're 105 years old. But you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
How is that going to help, and what is the city and really the government as a whole doing to help us not only get ourselves in a position to where we can benefit, where it's not just come in and then leave. If you know what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. And I would think I'd look at 3 areas where we are expecting to make a difference in our community, particularly in the Black community. Economics, culture, legacy. Let me start with economics. We're already working with Nia Richardson in our small business office in Kansas City Nia Webster, about how we actually have small business support from an early phase on it. Some of that was the storefront project, which is not actually just fixing storefronts. It is helping businesses, because oftentimes a business says $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 makes a difference for my ability to list my hours online, list my menu online for my restaurant, so I can get in everybody's algorithm about knowing that there's Jamaican food down this street. Right. It is making sure that you have, frankly, a space where you can exhibit some of your stuff, your clothing, your apparel, what have you. That's another big part of what we're trying to do. And then on the economics, trying to make sure we steer traffic to areas where we have a central focus of Black-owned businesses.
Correct.
Part of the reason we're being so aggressive at 18th and Vine now is so that we're open in the summer to make sure that we can have more things, more pedestrian experiences, so people get to see what Kansas City is about. If there was a shortcoming we had on the World Cup NFL draft back in 2023. I thought it was beautiful, it was wonderful, but everybody was like, yeah, if you weren't at Union Station or Liberty Memorial, you weren't part of it. And we had businesses not that far away saying, I didn't see anybody extra. So making sure from the moment somebody lands at the airport, gets off a train, they are handed a pamphlet or they get to download the app, which is important for a lot of our international visitors, right? And they know that if you want to see the culture of Kansas City, this is where you have to go. That's where every time I'm in a place like New Orleans, right? That's how I roll. I'm not just trying to go to a fantasy land and all that. Let me briefly do culture and legacy. Kansas City has a culture that needs to be shared. That is musicians. That is even our visual artists. We need to make sure they're part of it. From having artists who will be performing at KCI throughout the Cup to ensuring that in our more crowded spaces, including Fan Fest, that we actually have Black artists in Kansas City as a central part of it. And then the legacy, fixing up Stadium Drive. Look, here's the thing. The World Cup's on the east side.
Correct. That's
People,
what
people may not
Right.
think about it contrary. No, we need to take pride in the fact. I represented the 3rd District, the East Side District, on City Council, that this is an East Side World Cup. We're not leaving raggedy roads to and from Arrowhead Stadium. You're seeing improvements there now, fixing up parks, which will be legacy improvements, and I think hopefully making sure that we stabilize our funding and support of transit in this city to make sure people can get around, not just for 6 weeks, but for long after.
That's the reason why I asked from the standpoint of the east side.
Right.
Because I get it from the standpoint, we're here in the 18th and Vine District, and we know that there will be things that will occur, events and so forth. But I think it's more than just the 18th and Vine District, and I think that's what people are going to be wondering. How will we help businesses that are even further east of us or even a little bit further south of us that are on the east side, let the visitors, the fans, whatever, know that they exist, where some of that money can also get to them as well. That's what and that's one thing I wanted.
Right. And that's why I think when you look at how our small business is able to get the funding support to, and we actually just got a grant not long ago from DoorDash that did that very thing, and I was at about 60th and Troost, where we were looking at that very step. How do you make it so all of our businesses, and I think they're ready as entrepreneurs, but are ready in the modern way that people look for things? People are going to show up to this city, they're going to be glued to their phones.
Correct.
Right? And how do you make sure that when they're glued to their phones, they're not just saying Plaza, Crown Center, whatever else? They are actually saying, okay, I want to get this cuisine. I want to see this experience. I want to see a show. Right? Those are the things that I think we can expand. And that's the aggressive effort that I expect, not just from City Hall, and we have people doing it already every day, but also from the KC 2026 board.
My daughter brought up an interesting point, not that you know who she is, but my daughter brought up an interesting point that yesterday at dinner, that Messi and can't think of the other guy's name. Ronaldo
Yep.
could possibly be playing each other in Kansas City. Now, most black folks are not going to care who they are or know who they are, but there is a growing soccer community here in Kansas City, both women's soccer and men's soccer, that are going to go crazy if that happens. What is the city, I guess, what is the legacy of this World Cup going to be that you think it's going to be when it's over with? Even if those two gentlemen don't play, if they do, I'm sure there'll be a placard sitting out there at the stadium, because that's a big deal.
Big deal.
That's a big deal. I'm not a soccer person by any way, but I have two children that are, and that's a big deal.
And I'm a soccer fan, but the thing is, I think that a lot of people in Kansas City don't realize when we say Super Bowls, we're literally talking about not just one Super Bowl, but basically 6 Super Bowls. To jump and piggyback off of what Jason said, because of something maybe like that, if a Ronaldo or a Messi show up, what are you guys doing now to prepare from a standpoint of public safety?
Yeah.
Because that's going to be an issue. People are going to say, okay, where are all these officers, all these people going to be if we're bringing in basically over another million people to the city?
Because I think the country Argentina might just show up.
Right. We're an affordable place, all of that. I can see that happening.
Right.
I think a few things. First of all, this is a good opportunity to learn for all of us. You know, I know Black people just like everybody else, right? We are interested in learning, picking up new things. I think this exposure can be good for all of us. I've learned more about soccer over the years too. When I was growing up, I know the older dudes grew up with baseball all around them. They were on strike when I was a kid and all of that.
Same.
So getting baseball has been kind of a more later adult thing, but you still get it. And so I think one thing is making sure we share the game more broadly with everybody. I may ask to write a column on soccer, although the editor ain't going to be like, you don't know enough.
I'm all for it. I'm good with that.
It just depends.
Right. Well, just make sure it's good.
Yeah.
On public safety, what I will say is we have already mandated that every police officer is not allowed to a vacation during that period. There will be mandatory overtime. There will be a lot of work.
Yeah,
and then,
of
of course,
a lot of work here too.
Right.
Just so you know.
And we've got mutual aid with every jurisdiction all around us. I mean, this is going to be big. We've been working with the federal government. They've already put in hundreds of millions of dollars in safety for all the different venues around the country. So public safety is something that I think we're going to step up on. But importantly, in this way too, public safety doesn't stop outside of Arrowhead Stadium. It doesn't stop outside of Liberty Memorial where the Fan Fest is going to be. It is everywhere where there is a crowd of people. And as we know all too well, I stayed at the corner of 19th and Paseo for 12 years of my life. You can't just have congregations with no security, no lighting, no policing, no real planned events, right? We are going to make sure that there's activations all around. Those activations are safe. The people are told to move along where they need to, and hopefully we're not getting some of the fights that we have seen over years past here.
Mayor, we only have a couple of minutes left, but as we head into 2026, what are maybe, other than obviously the focus on the World Cup is huge and making sure the city is ready. But if you had to mention just maybe one thing that is going to be your focus besides the World Cup going into 2026, what would that be?
Well, I think, because I'm going to have a lot of stuff that they make us focus on. Something that I have been talking about since I was running for mayor was housing. How do we produce more housing? And I would say
affordable housing.
Affordable housing and housing for seniors.
Yeah.
The fastest growing group of homeless people in America are persons over 60 years old. You are seeing the traditional safety nets, be it your family or frankly even the federal government, others, falling by the wayside. We have got to continue to produce more housing. A goal of my administration has been to build 10,000 units of new affordable housing in our city. The voters approved the Housing Trust Fund some years ago. I think we're at about 7,000 units with different sources of housing that's either affordable or mixed income housing in affordable buildings. That is the sort of thing that I think we need to continue to do more of. I knew homelessness as a child myself. I think getting folks off the streets, building stability in their lives, allows somebody to be ready for school, for work, for whatever it is coming ahead. You see the studies that suggest they'll be healthier. That's the sort of thing that I think the city needs to continue its focus on. There'll be 1,000 other things. We still got to talk about where the Chiefs and Royals are going to play one day. We still need to talk about all these other issues, but I think housing is a difference that Kansas City's making right now, and I think we're doing a good job of it.
I got one more question, and then we'll probably be running out of time. How did you feel about Kansas City being mentioned in the mayoral race in New York City?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was
interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was preposterous in many ways because it was folks that didn't know in any way what the on-the-ground situation was in Kansas City.
Yes.
Right.
I don't think that how they described it was conservative forces trying to exploit it.
Right.
They failed miserably, by the way.
Miserably.
Because Mr. Mamdani won. He beat Cuomo twice. All of that. But, you understand that's how it is to be used. What I care about is how do we get healthy and access to food to communities that need it? How do we continue to improve investment on the Prospect Corridor? And here's the thing that disappointed me the most. Most of the money they're talking about was on the building itself. Right? How much government money is Trump spending right now on the east wing of the White House?
Right.
$300 million for a new ballroom, basically.
And ain't paid nobody.
Right. And so my jam is, are they going to try to make
will.
me ashamed to have taken down what was an eyesore at some point, put in a new structure, something that can be subdivided for new uses, can go back to grocery, to all of that? No, I'm not ashamed of that.
Right.
And here's my thing. Every day in America, there is government support of a lot of things. Let me talk about the aforementioned teams.
Yeah.
The Chiefs play in a free facility every day.
Yeah.
Right? They've actually been pretty successful.
Yeah.
So if you're going to say that we bad at this and bad at that, you need to talk about what we good at.
Right.
Right. Public-private partnerships are something that are central to how things get done. And when it's black folks, it doesn't mean it needs to get all this hate in a way that the Plaza, which, by the way, they defaulted previously on a $100 million loan.
Right.
Right? They're not saying the city's raggedy, they raggedy, but they say it about us. So I kept it moving, been in it too long.
No, I agree with you. I felt like it was one of those sucker punches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even though it was a sucker punch, I want to say thanks to our fans, our readers, for joining us today as far as the wake-up call. Mayor, we thank you. We know your schedule's busy. We are going to invite you back.
Please.
Yes.
Obviously, not during the World Cup, 'cause we both will probably, none of us will probably be getting any sleep.
That's right.
But we do want to thank you for
I'll be
joining
out
us.
schlepping papers, trust me.
You'll be out, yes, you'll be out schlepping papers.
Moving those papers.
And I will be out as far as typing, editing, writing, and all of that. But no, again, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. And I want to thank our audience for joining us here on the Wake Up Call.
Yep.
Subscribe, hit that button on the Call KC YouTube channel. Plus also, subscribe online because you get a lot more online, folks, than you do in the regular paper. But, we understand if you just love your regular paper, keep getting that, keep taking that, and so forth. But, Mayor, thank you for joining us.
Thank y'all so much. Appreciate it.
All righty.
All right.